All right, everyone. Welcome to the Earth Medicine Podcast with Celine. I am so thrilled to be here with Pamela from Quarterly Holistics. She is a herbalist with a lot of wisdom to share. I really have a strong affinity to plants and herbal medicine myself, and I'm excited to have her on the show. So, Pamela, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you. So I would love to really hear about your story. Why herbs? How herbs? How did that all start for you?
Oh man. Um, well, I guess I can say that I started with herbs because I was taking prescription antidepressants for really severe seasonal affective disorder
Mm-hmm.
and premenstrual dysphoric disorder.
Mm-hmm.
That had completely penetrated my entire life. And I felt like the antidepressants were just not a good solution. And I was really unhappy with how I felt being on these prescription drugs. And I felt like I really wasn't able to like access whatever it was that I felt like I needed to find in order to help heal myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that said, I started to look into herbal options, and I started with the very standard St. John's wort. It's the
Right.
antidepressant herb. It's
Right.
actually best for nerve issues, not for depression issues. um,
Interesting.
but hey, you got to start somewhere. So that's what I started with, and I felt really good. I started sleeping, really well, and I just felt like I wanted to do things again. And I said, oh, I really have to learn more about this because I have a whole host of other things that I can shed some light on. So what can I do? So I was looking at an herbal program or an integrative nutrition program. And I said, I have to do this for myself to help heal myself. I just have to do this. And I wasn't making a lot of money at the time. So I went with the herbal program. and it is the first herbal book that I bought. The author is the director and started the school that I ended up attending. So it kind of felt like a little full circle. And I started the program, and I thought I was going to get really into Ayurveda because I had done a lot with Ayurvedic nutrition in the past on my own. But I fell in love with Chinese medicine. It was one of those things where it just kind of like everything's in me said, this is the answer. So that's really how I got into herbs. Was I really just wanted to help myself. First, it was with the seasonal affective disorder and the other depression issues. And then once I really got into the program, it was, can I help fix my period? Can I fix my chronic long-term migraines? I started getting migraines when I was 12 years old. And I got them on a regular basis for many, many, many years. And they were so debilitating that even medication wasn't helping them.
Right. Yeah.
And so I said, well, this will be great. I can really work on that. So I self-treated for a few years before I started seeing an acupuncturist who helped bring me through a lot of trauma that actually got brought up. It was like, peeling back the layer after layer after layer.
Totally.
So I feel like herbalism really didn't hit home to me until I hit this baseline layer with this acupuncturist where the whole lid was blown open, and it was a lot of light was shed on why I had a lot of the issues that I had physically. And so really, I came to herbalism to heal myself. And in the process, I had friends and family asking me if I could help them with their issues. And I said, okay, well, I'm just an herbal student, but sure, let's see what happens. And my friends and family were getting results. And then I started working with a small number of private clients, and they were getting results. And then I started writing my blog, and I get, very lovely messages from my blog readers about, various things that they've done based on what was written in the blog posts.
That's so awesome.
So it's just kind of, it's come along very nicely, I think, for someone who just wanted to feel the depression.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
Very, It's beautiful where our challenges can, like, overcoming our challenges and really being on the journey, as we were discussing beforehand, is, I really do believe that we're all meant to help each other in some way. And so it's beautiful that you took that challenge and really have a calling out of it. So, and I want to ask you, so I know that some people have some maybe fears around using herbal medicine or like some sort of apprehension. Why do you think people have that? And what would you say to those who are kind of like nervous about it and also curious about it?
Sure. Well, there's usually two main reasons why people are apprehensive about using herbs. The first one is that modern allopathic Western medicine really focuses on large doses of something and isolated constituents and how those isolated constituents then affect the whole body. So a lot of people don't understand that the research that points to possible side effects are really isolated incidents. And so a lot of people, within that then don't understand that the model that most herbalists are working with is a system based on disease patterns. So, those sorts of fears that like we're using a different construct than Western medicine. And it's really hard for a lot of Westerners to understand that this construct of looking at the person is so different. And then choosing the herb for the person versus for the disease is a completely different concept. It's like, using antibiotics for everything is not really necessarily the answer.
Right.
Because they can create more problems, whereas herbs really mitigate those, after effects of, wiping out your microbiome. You're not going to you're not going to do that if you take herbs for your sinus infection. What they'll do is they'll help the body help itself restore back to balance. So it's the challenge and fear with working with new people is that this is a completely different mindset than what most people have been brought up with.
Right.
And then so that answers both the first and the second.
Beautiful. Two birds, one seed.
But yeah, they all connect to each other, and there also has to be a certain amount of trust when working with your practitioner, because herbalism in the United States is not regulated. You don't get a license unless you went to acupuncture school and passed the Chinese herbalism board exam and did the program for that. There's no licensing otherwise for herbalists. You have to be an acupuncturist in order to, work with getting your license.
Right.
So for everybody else, including myself, you really have to have faith that the person is, has integrity and discipline and really is making the positive effort and has the education. And so it's a leap of faith in a way that going to a doctor and getting an antibiotic, since that was my example earlier, the faith is automatic with a doctor because they're a doctor. Whereas with an herbalist, there is no safeguard in that way. So I think that's another big reason why that herbs are, challenged and feared, because it's multiple levels.
Right. There is a conditioning, and I want to, preface that yes, allopathic medicine definitely has its place, and we've both used it. And then there's a whole universe, unexplored territory of the natural world. And plants are, what I love about plants is that there's the spirit inside of this plant that is not only, there's a inherent wisdom and inherent knowledge within the plant, and then it interacts with their body, and that's why I love that you're saying it's not based on if you have the sinuses or based on if you have the symptom. It's working on the person. So what kinds of things that do people come to you the most often with?
Oh, well, I get people with chronic pain, either from lingering from a surgery or an injury of some kind, or something like a chronic, long-term menstrual pain and endometriosis. I also get a lot of people with anxiety and insomnia issues. So the emotional issues.
That's right.
I get a lot of people. So I get the physical pain, and I get the spiritual pain is usually, that's those are my top two most often written down or spoken about complaints.
And,
yeah.
And with that too, so do you like, what do you look at when you are going to work with somebody? So again, if like two different people can have chronic pain,
right.
How do you go about like, what do you look for? What do you look for inside of a person to actually be able to complement a herb with them?
Sure. Well, with Chinese medicine, that's the diagnostic system that I use most frequently because it's very old. I find it to be very comprehensive, and Chinese medicine really knows how to work with, since that was your question, physical pain. There's a whole set of questions that you can ask. What type of pain is it? Is it stabbing? Is it boring? Is it dull? Is it aching? Does it move? Is it twitching? Is it numb? Like, is the skin numb around the area of the pain? All that means something. Lights up different patterns that are possible. So you get asked a lot of questions when you come in with pain. And then I also like to ask about how the person feels about their pain. Does it bring up worry? Does it bring up anxiety? Does it bring up fear? Does it bring up anger? Does it make you feel like you have grief over the fact that if you have severe pain, you're not living your life? I mean, some people are just angry about that. Other people are grief-stricken over it. So all of those things play a part in the herbs that I would choose for someone.
Right.
And I don't usually use single herbs. I will use complex formulas. So my typical working structure with all of that is to give a what I call a root level formula that addresses the root cause. And then I'll work on another formula that's more for symptomatic issues. Because if you're still feeling your pain, even though we're working on the cause of the pain, you're not going to want to continue your treatment.
That's right.
The first thing, we got to get rid of the pain while we're taking care of all the other issues. So you get asked a lot of questions. How do you sleep? What does your stool look like?
Right. And I think that's the beautiful thing about working with a herbal practitioner too. It's like, yes, you could Google something and be like, yeah, I'm going to go for St. John wort, or, whatever it is. And it's a beautiful thing to have somebody who is skilled like yourself to actually assess and then give a whole overall picture of what's needed.
Right. Exactly. And the catch-22 with the self-treatment thing is that without a diagnostic system, your chances of success are maybe 30%. Whereas if you're going to an objective third party to be assessed, your chances of success increase, 2 or 3-fold. So, and I self-treated for a long time.
I have absolutely. Yeah. And I recommend seeing a practitioner.
But yeah, exactly. And like I had, and as I had said before, what really catapulted me to the next level with my healing was going to work with someone else.
I think that's the beautiful part of the journey, right? Is like we have that curiosity, and I do encourage people to go for it, whether it's something like chamomile, if they've never had, chamomile even, or you know what I mean, or lemon balm, whatever it is, and going down that route, and then eventually like really trusting that guidance that we have within to say, okay, what's my next step? So based on that, what are some herbs that people could start with at a beginner level just to really elevate their health? And what do you recommend for sleep as well?
Well, the for sleep, I guess I'll start with for sleep, and then we'll go to herbs that you can start with for your general health. Most people really need help with their digestion. their digestive fire. A lot of people get bloated after they eat, or feel sluggish, or their bowel movements aren't very regular, or they belch a lot after meals, or any one of those many number of digestive issues. A lot of people could benefit from taking a bitters blend before meals. And what the bitters does is it activates the whole digestive system and primes it for the food that you're about to receive. So you will be able to make the most out of the food that you ingest. So that's like really the seat of your health, is like your digestive system. So bitters are a great place to start, and you can get them at most health food stores. You can even get them at a liquor store.
Right.
The Angostura bitters.
Right.
There's the Suze, big bottles of Suze, which is just basically gentian.
And Jägermeister used to be used as a bitter, was it not? Or like a stomach relief?
I would not be surprised because it's so aromatic. There are so many options for those types of herbs where they're used as, pre-dinner digestives, post-dinner digestives. Those sorts of anything digestive is a really great way to get introduced to herbs, I think.
I totally agree, because this is something that has been used before. I don't know, for some reason in 2017 we're not using bitters, and we're a lot of people still are not eating the fermented foods as well with their meals as well. So bitters, I think that's so great that you bring that up.
Yeah, and you can make your own blend for very little money. You can buy a bottle for very little money, and they last a really long time in the bottle, so it's extremely economical.
Yeah.
And you can even use the bitters after you eat if you have an upset stomach. You can take extra doses of the bitters to help calm everything down. So it's a really great, almost all-purpose digestive formula. And there's some companies making really tasty ones. I make them custom for some of my herbal clients. I make a bottle that I'll offer every so often on my website. That's what I consider an all-purpose bitters blend. So it's just a lot of it's a big market, bitters. So everybody can find them. Now, for sleep, the Chinese herbalist in me wants to say that it depends on what kind of sleep problem someone has. So if we have time, I can give a couple of examples.
Absolutely.
Okay. So there's the kind of sleep where you fall asleep just fine, and then you wake up, and then you may or may not fall back asleep, but then you go back, within a short period of time, and then you wake up again, and then you go back to sleep, and then you wake up. So it's like you're awake, you're asleep, you're awake, you're asleep, and you go back and forth between that. Even if it's just once in the middle of the night, that's considered part of like a sleep a cycle disruption sleep pattern. So that is something that would be helped by an herb like lemon balm or chamomile. Those are, very common, easy to get herbs. There's also catnip, which is really nice as well. And they're all pretty tasty. And, there's passion flower, but for me, it's not as tasty, so I'm not inclined to drink it. I enjoy what you're drinking, right?
Totally. I have a tincture for passion flower.
Yeah. So, you can make a really strong cup of chamomile tea before bed. And not just one tea bag. If you're using tea bags, use like 3 or 4 tea bags. Really make it strong, make the tea almost thick. And drink a little bit of that before bed, and you can keep it in a cup next to your bed. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, you can drink a little more chamomile tea, and it'll help kind of soothe everything and get you back to sleep. So that's one kind of sleep problem. Another kind of sleep problem is where you cannot go to sleep at all. Like you get into bed and it's like you've hit your second or third wind. And you just kind of feel like your head's spinning, your mind's spinning. Maybe you get heart palpitations sometimes, or you have like a dry throat or mouth at night, but you can't drink enough water to satiate that thirst, or you get, fevers, or not fevers, but you get hot flashes. You might not have menopause, but you still get really, really hot. That kind of sleep, you need something more nourishing. So herbs like milky oats, oat straw. This is not an herb, but it's food like herbs, work just as well too. I really am a big proponent of eating squash at night because it's really like, juicy and nourishing. So those sorts of herbs can really be, and foods can really be helpful with like kind of just soothing you a little bit more to help get you to sleep. And beyond that, that's when I like to get into custom formula realms, because there's a lot of really great Chinese herbs for sleep, but they're all in formulas, and just taking one herb isn't quite enough.
Right.
Another good herb for a lot of people to try is ginger. Fresh ginger tea sipped throughout the day, especially if you're someone who is cold. Hands and feet are always cold, or you're the person in the office who has 4 sweaters on and everybody else is running around in t-shirts.
Totally.
You need some ginger. And another herb that I really like a lot, and it's my new favorite herb, is hawthorn berry. It's such a fabulous herb. It's great for the digestive system. It's great for the heart, and for like the spiritual heart and the physical heart. So that's one of my new favorite herbs, and I like that blended with like really spicy herbs like cinnamon or cardamom and orange peel. Those like help warm you up and get things moving, and that's often what most of us need, because most of us sit while we work.
Totally. Yeah, and in North America, I live in Vancouver, which is still warmer, but I get cold all the time. So I'm always with my ginger tea, and even sometimes just hot water.
Right.
And I want to ask you one other thing that I find common that people deal with is mood. Do you have any mood lifters within herbs as well?
Well, it depends on what the problem is with with someone's mood. There's if the mood is someone gets really moody, like grouchy, frustrated kind of mood things, then that's something where like you need to really get your body moving. And you need to eat more leafy greens that are cooked, and reduce the amount of nuts that you eat, and cheese and dairy. And then for herbs, things like dandelion would be good, burdock, orange peels, tangerine peels, lemon peels, lime peels. Any of those kinds of peels really help move all that frustration around. So those are the ones that I think are pretty common, and that's easy for almost everybody to get. I'm trying to think of things that everybody can get their hands on without having a special order or anything. So burdock is more for the people who kind of feel dried out and frustrated, whereas dandelion is for people who are frustrated and they have like a lot of extra like liquid in their body, like they like swelling and edema, or like they have a lot of dark urine, but they just feel kind of bloated with water. That dandelion is great for people who get really frustrated like that.
Right. It's diuretic in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is, but it moves the liver qi, which is what is the frustration issue.
Interesting. Beautiful. And I love that you have the background with Chinese medicine, so you can look at the different organs and then the different emotional states with the organ and really make sense of all of that too.
Right. And it really helps narrow down what herbs you need. For someone who's like a type A moody person, blue vervain is a great herb for someone like that, because their shoulders are usually up to here because they're so if you give them blue vervain, they kind of can take that deep breath that they've otherwise not been able to take. So if you get someone who's moody, who's just feeling blue, like life just is feeling really flat and there's no joy, like that's a heart thing. That's not that's something else. That might be something that for just a general person to try, I would say try some hawthorn. Hawthorn berry, hawthorn leaf, hawthorn flower. And that'll help kind of open things up a little in the heart for, to get that light back into yourself.
I love that you touch on probably one of my biggest I guess, passions, interests is really how their emotions are connected to the physical body. And you mentioned that with acupuncture, and I want to ask you just that question and take a step back. And I know that a lot of women deal with premenstrual symptom cramps, whether it's bloating, all of that. Are there a few tips that you can give to our listeners who are dealing with that, that they can work with herbs? And then and to what extent should they take that kind of solo journey and then come to someone like you? Because I have a lot of friends that I think I've dealt with a lot of the emotional stuff within myself and physical balancing hormones that I don't use these herbs any longer. But what do you have to say about that?
Sure. Oh, yeah. I've been on this journey personally, and I've helped other people with it. A big thing is that a lot of people can start with, women can start on their own, is really honestly working with your diet. Your diet is a huge factor in how you feel premenstrually and during your period and how you recover afterwards. I've recommended women give up coffee and chocolate and dairy and all the nut butters, because a lot of that just really kind of congests and it moves all of the excesses of the body into women's organs that don't really get a lot of movement, which would be the uterus. So like the uterus, it is self-cleansing, but it's not something like the bladder, which physically really strongly flushes things. So your opportunity to flush your excess out of your body is during your period. So if you're filling it with all these things like chocolate and coffee and dairy that are congesting, you're going to get a lot of you could get pain, you could get the moodiness, you could get the bloating. So if you really honestly remove those things from your diet and fully remove it for like 3 months, then you can see a lot of positive change.
I agree. And those are the things that women crave. It's so fascinating and really, and there's replacements. Like I can link to all this kind of stuff for women listening. Like, how can I give up chocolate? It's like, I personally do like heshiru powder and cacao sometimes to get some of that magnesium and that blood, fluids and even just nourishing like sweet potatoes and squash, like you mentioned. Like there's so many alternatives. So I don't want people to say like, I have to give that up, but it's so essential because these are aggravating foods for us women in this time.
Right. And, and the thing too with the coffee and the chocolate is they irritate and kind of like make the uterus spasm more instead of less. So why? Because what it's doing is giving you a boost of energy, and it's also doing that to your uterus. So when your uterus, your uterus gets upset. So if you don't focus on the fact that you're giving up these things that you love, because I was a daily coffee drinker. I had chocolate every day. I drank black tea when I wasn't drinking coffee. Totally. I had yogurt every day. And I love cheese. So I've totally been there. Yep. And I know that it is challenging for the first few weeks, but it does get easier. And if you instead make sure that you fill your diet with all of those deeply nourishing foods otherwise, then the cravings for those things go away, and realize that it's not your body that's craving those things, like like your soul body. It's your mind that's habituated to these things that's asking for these things. So it's almost like what one of my teachers says, your cravings are just the microbes in your gut telling you that they want a jelly donut.
That's right. That's right.
And if you give yourself enough time without those things, you realize that that's what it is, and that you don't need that.
Yes.
And that your body will thank you for not pushing it to do things that it doesn't want to do, like drinking coffee to overcome tiredness, and having having chocolate right around your period to give you a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment that you might not feel otherwise during your period. And I say this because I I've felt these things, so I'm not passing judgment on anyone.
No, I get it. I get exactly where you're coming from, because I've dealt with that as well. Right. And it, again, it's like trying to nourish this emotional craving that we have, right? And I think from when we get to that place of balance, that's when we can do the intuitive eating, the intuitive exercise, right? So it's just first about clearing and that balancing. And I think a lot of us are off balance, and like these herbs again are these perfect harmonizers. So what are a few other herbs or places to start that you would recommend for women?
Okay, so, that's really, it would be ideal to have, multiple examples for, common
I'm asking very broad questions. Totally.
It's really hard to give answers for these broad questions. So I'm trying to be really selective about how I answer. Because normally I would just say, well, it depends on, what everything feels like and what's going on. The most common issue that women suffer from is what in Chinese medicine is called liver qi stagnation. I have a whole blog series that I wrote about, helping your period.
That's great.
But a great herb that you can use for your period is castor oil packing. It's external. You're not even putting it in your body. You're putting it over your lower abdomen with a heat pack, and it's forcing us, 21st century women who are running around doing 500 different things every day to sit down and relax. And what it does is it helps the body release what it needs to release and soothes the body. It helps break up scar tissue. I've read many reports of cysts being, shrunken, and I've seen how it helps the uterus flush its lining more efficiently. And if it's flushing the lining efficiently, you'll have less pain. So castor oil is a great herb to use, and you don't have to worry about it contradicting or being contraindicated with any medication that you're taking or worrying about the timing. So castor oil packs are a great way to start. Chamomile every day before starting 2 weeks before your period, I would say is a really good herb to be taking, because it's really rich in minerals and nutrients, and it's very soothing. So if you start taking it a couple of weeks before your period, and then bump up your dosage, the number of cups of tea that you're drinking every day around your period, then what you can do is just kind of remind the body that it doesn't need to be so upset. So that's a big, and you can put ginger in it, in your chamomile tea, if you tend to feel cold, and if heat packs help your cramps a lot. So you can combine herbs on your own for what feels best for you. I would say after your period, to really help the body replenish, definitely drink that hawthorn tea with some cinnamon in it to help keep everything moving, help nourish your blood. Drink bone broth. Other herbs, you had mentioned Hushawu, but I feel like that herbs like that are best in combination with formulas for the specific person. But you can go to Chinatown and buy Hushawu syrup and try that for the week after your period. And just for the week or two after your period, and then stop it. What that does is it helps the body restore its reserves so that it doesn't have to try so hard during your period. So your body has an easier time. So I mean, Hushawu wouldn't be my first choice or recommendation, but but it's definitely a valuable herb. But a very common herb that you can take is chamomile, hawthorn. Like I said, I'm going to try to use hawthorn for everything in this
I love it.
interview because it's my new favorite herb.
I know. I'm gonna get some. That's so beautiful. I've always known that it was beneficial for the heart, but I always thought it was like a very physical thing. And now I'm like, oh yeah, well,
yeah, and it's great for your digestion. Like I feel like, for myself, I had started feeling like this, like nauseousness, like my food wasn't descending in my stomach properly right before my period. So I said, I'm going to try taking some hawthorn because in Chinese medicine used for digestive issues. So I said, I'm going to try this, and it's recommended often for women with, menstrual issues. So let's see what happens. I've not had an issue since I started taking it.
Wow.
So,
that's beautiful. And what comes up too is that, again, kind of coming back to the reservation of people trying out the herbs, it really is listening to our bodies in that way. It's like you wouldn't take like a thing of, whatever over the counter prescription and use it without, like multiple times a day without, unless some doctor told you something. And so with people, whether it's hawthorn or things like chamomile are so gentle. Again, it's listening to your body. If you start to feel nauseous about something or don't feel good,
right.
This it's simple. It's very simple.
It's really simple. I've always said to my herbal students, this is not rocket science.
Yeah.
This is just all we're doing is really looking at things and finding the pattern.
Yes.
It's just like looking for 4-leaf clovers in the lawn. It's the same thing. You're just looking for a pattern. So it's just a matter of being able to recognize those patterns. So for women who do feel cold a lot, who do suffer from cramps, who have, positive responses in their cramps to heat and to movement, you can make a blend of something like chamomile, fresh sliced ginger, orange peel, and maybe a little bit of cinnamon.
Beautiful.
And those are all things that most people are able to get at the grocery store.
That's right.
So I feel like if you're going to get introduced to herbs, the best way is through the grocery store.
Totally.
Love the grocery store.
Absolutely. And from there, and then the curiosity grows, or you just start to feel better and you're like, what else is possible?
Right. And for the women who really feel drained after their periods and then you get cramps, because there's a pattern in Chinese medicine called cold. So it's really your body is deficient, it's cold, you're unable to, most women feel, or without this pattern, feel better after your period starts. These types of women feel worse as their period goes on, not better, because their body is being drained of reserves that it doesn't have. So for those women, you really need to work on, bone broths that, if you're vegan, you can make vegetable broths and with black beans in them to really help build the body that way, and use gelatin of some form to really help restore that nourishment. And really listen, if your body likes being warm and you're feeling cold, have the ginger, have the cinnamon. If you get irritated when you have those things, then listen to your body and have something like lemon balm. So which is also when seeing someone else, at some point you will say, I've gone as far as I can go, and I just cannot seem to get to that next step with my healing.
That's right.
That's when you say, okay, now it's time to go to someone else and to see what they have to say.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I know that's going to be helpful for a lot of women out there. And really, to tie that up, where can people find you to take that next step? And really, what do you want people to know about herbs and herbal wisdom?
Sure. Well, they can find me at quaternityholistics.com. And I also have a new herbal product line that I'm in the works making and launching called Tug Hill Herbals. So if you just .com both of those, you'll find them online. I'm on Facebook under the same name, Quaternity Holistics. And so what I feel about herbs is that they really give the body the opportunity to do the healing that it's trying to do. Like your body wants to have this beautiful homeostasis where it's able to, move through the world with grace and ease and wisdom. All these things that happen to us over time, whether they're physical, emotional, or spiritual, they kind of get embedded in the body, and then the body kind of starts working around those issues. So it kind of starts building these imbalances and And so what I feel like the herbs do is help to unroot those imbalances so that your body
Wow.
can do what it really wants to be doing, which is to be healthy.
Yes.
And to be able to deal with whatever life throws at you, whether it's something really happy or really sad, you're able to move through it in a way that like you feel good about, that you feel responsible for. So I feel like herbs give everybody the opportunity to really take responsibility for their life, for their journey, so that you can really manifest more of what you want. Because you can't do that if your windshield is completely...
That's right. That's right.
Because you can't see the forest for the trees.
That's right.
And so you need to like clear the way. And I feel like herbs really help people clear the way in those people who are willing to do the work, because clearing the way is messy work.
Yes.
It's very messy work. You know, depending on who you are, it can be easier, harder. I mean, I'm someone who fought a lot with what I felt was happening with my life and my journey, and I wanted things to be one way when they were another way. Even with my healing, I was like, this shouldn't be like this, and you know, why is this like this? I should be further down my path by now, and I'm not, so on and so forth. And you know, the classic overachiever perfectionist.
Totally.
So working with herbs shows you that, you know, life is never going to be perfect. And because, you know, you even look at a plant and there's always going to be imperfections.
Oh, I love that.
They can just transmit those bits to you so that they can help you see like, hey, we're all just doing our best here. So if you just show up and do your best and take responsibility, the herbs can help you, because they can show you things. I mean, so I feel like that's a big mission that I'm trying to show people, is like, you can clear away these things that are stuck in your path, but like the herb can't do that. What the herb is doing is working on releasing these things. It's what you do with that is important. So the herb is just kind of handing you these things in your life that you need to work on.
I love that. I love that. Such wise words. And what you said too about taking responsibility is something I emphasize over and over again, is that we have these tools, we have the practitioners. However, if we're not willing to put in the work for that next level, and sometimes it gets messy and it's uncomfortable, but then we become alchemists. And, you know, and these are such powerful tools that were given to us. They literally grow from this beautiful planet we live on. And I so acknowledge you, Pamela, for the work that you do and the stand and the mission that you have in the world to really clear the pathway and really hold this light for people.
Yeah. I mean, and I really feel like people, if you can free that up, you can really live life so fully. And yeah. So,
and actually do the work that we came here to on the planet, and that's really what I stand for as well. So
I still am not sure what work I'm here to do on this planet. Like I still even question is being an herbalist what I was put here to do. But it makes, you know, working with herbs and working on yourself really helps make the unknown much more of a safe feeling. It's more, there's more safety, and it's safe. You feel safe even with faced with the unknown, which is, you know, that sort of thing that happens when you really do the work.
That's right. Cultivating our inner state is and especially in you know, our changing world and like accelerated energy, it's like really getting a grounding on our inner state, and the plants really do help us with that. So I sincerely thank you. You added so much value to myself and those who will be listening and tuning in. Thank you so much, Pamela.
Well, thank you so much too.
Thank you.
This is great. Thank you.
Thank you.